content in general, are we going to see personalized content, or are we going to see these like wide net advertising campaigns?
So, Gary said it before in terms of we have to look where the consumer is going, and we all need to work together as an industry to really change the ecosystem of how advertising works in the places that it's available. And you also said, you go back to the day-to-day realities of like, I need to make my OCF and hit my P&Ls, and the reality set in, but the consumers aren't going to stop moving the way that they're moving. And so, look, there were pictures of Bezos, with the head of the NFL, and that's something that could be scary. But can they really continue to be non-profitable and make money just on subscriptions? Because a one-way revenue stream has proven that it will fail, and that you need dual revenue stream with the price of content. And you see someone like Facebook who's unwilling to get into the content game because their margins would go through the floor. So it's really us working together, I think, as an industry to give consumers advertising, because 3 out of 4 people who watch Super Bowl said that they were looking forward to seeing the commercials. It is part of the pop culture conversation, and they want great creative. And they also want to be informed about new brands. So I really think it's working together to make it better.
My take on that is 3 out of 4 sounds right and low intuitively, but what about every other commercial that exists in the world? What's the polling on that? And when Amazon gets the NFL rights, it's going to come down to how they want to monetize it, right? To your point, how long will Wall Street allow them to invest? And when does the bloom come off the rose? And that becomes the question. But once you have that much first-party data and behavior, nobody here, I ask everybody here to ask themselves how much they're willing to pay for Amazon Prime versus what they're paying now.
Well, Hulu, when they offered the 99 cents for ad load, most of the subscribers took the ad load. So, they couldn't even believe it.
Because Hulu's one-dimensional, right?
Sorry?
Who's one-dimensional? One more time. How much is everybody willing to pay for Amazon Prime, which delivers all your
Amazon
products?
Prime is not as good as Hulu, and I think consumers in general find
I'm talking about actual Amazon Prime, the shit that everybody here has to buy everything they buy.
So never they charge is the answer.
What we're having siloed conversations. And when Amazon has last mile and you can order toothpaste and get it in 24 seconds in your door, I think we're having a naive conversation. And when if the terrorists attacked Amazon's infrastructure for the internet, the whole internet would collapse. Everybody is on the infrastructure. So there is a lot of leverage points that Amazon has that we have to factor into this because they have leverage. Everybody here would pay a lot more for Prime because the value of free delivery across all the products and services they buy is enormous. And that's just real life. And it'll be interesting to see, and I don't know, how much more are we willing to pay for that core service that is so important? They layer on top of it. And so, they have a lot of leverage.
I think to your question, it just means that we're all in this room going to have to get a lot smarter and better. And it doesn't mean that we're going to stop advertising and brand building, but we're going to have to do it in a different way. And if Super Bowl is no longer the advertising cultural event, we'll find another way to do it.
And we did it. Super Bowl 1 wasn't even sold out. The ads on Joe Lewis's fight on the radio were a fortune in the 40s. It's not that long ago. We're always going to move to where the attention is. The question becomes the ad formats. The reason I love the Ellen integration is that's good. You're consuming that. I think brands should be spending way more integrating into the actual content and how networks decide to do that and things of that nature. Amazon might come out and not have commercials, or who knows. But what Amazon has is something that nobody else has. When they have the NFL rights and you're watching your game and a player scores a touchdown and you're excited, and the friction of you being able to know that because something just happened during their game, that if you just say, Alexa, order me a Sam Darnold jersey, it's discounted because they're playing, they're eliminating friction. They're going to make revenue in a way other people haven't. We're not.
Play it on Twitch.
Yeah, but do you know what I mean? They're eliminating, you're watching a football game. Something good happens, you're a diehard fan, and you're aware now through marketing and branding that you can just buy that product through voice. what we do all the time is we make binary decisions without understanding the other variables that this infrastructure is creating. That's going to make them highly profitable. Their content's valuable to them. They sell shit. NBC and ESPN don't.
I think it's really important to also remember that a few years ago we were talking about Facebook exactly the same way. I think there's going to be a lot of ethical issues that come into play that I think we should consider. This idea that Amazon's taking over the world and they're going to use their servers and the Alexas to kind of fully integrate and in a really creepy way completely change our lives, I think potentially might have some checks and balances in place.
Sure. The government gets involved when somebody wins too much.
Yeah, but I think it's even more than that. I do wonder what the evolution of Facebook is going to be in a world where the consumer is becoming a lot more vigilant about what's happening with their data.
Well, if you look at Instagram's behavior, the answer is we go where we value things, right?
It's a very different thing, Instagram versus Facebook, and the brand awareness around the issues of Facebook, for some reason, don't relate to Instagram for now. I think they might.
Because hypocrisy is cute.
One last question in the back, right?
Hi. So I guess it's kind of two questions, just because you just mentioned with Instagram and Facebook and data, and I just wonder, how aware every consumer is and to the extent that their data is being used and leveraged. But kind of backing out of that, I'm wondering more about when will dynamic creative in TV come into play, and if you were to see a Redline puppy ad, would you have had a better Super Bowl ad experience, and how would you have felt about whatever that brand was that showed that to you? Because I feel like that's available in digital technology, but it's, I'm wondering when it's going to come to TV, because I think we're ready for it.
I'm just going to really quickly say something. I think there's an element of me seeing that and feeling like I discovered it, and there's something really special there about it, versus feeling like someone's read my mind and has put that into my plate in a way that feels really creepy and intrusive. I am one of the 2 to 5% of people who actually care about how their data is being used, because I just know too much about it. But I would say half the people don't care. I think that might change with time, and regardless, it doesn't matter, because if 5% of the people care enough, they're going to change the way everything else works.
But also consumers are moving the way that they view traditional linear television content in a digital format, whether it's a Roku or you name your app. And so those products are data enabled, and you're going to see a huge shift of being able to do addressable linear television like you've never been able to do before. The technology is now catching up with consumer behavior. So I think it's really exciting times for all of us. But again, we have to protect the consumer and give them their privacy and be responsible with what we do. And I would like to add that Jeff Bezos did say that television advertising was one of the most powerful vehicles, and he wasn't a fan and changed his mind in the last year because he started to invest heavily and see how it was driving sales and usage of Amazon Prime. So
I think using fear as a sales tactic is interesting. And I think that is like an important, seriously, I think it's a really important, I think it's interesting. First of all, everybody just has opinions, right? And then things play out. And I value massively people that have different points of view. I think massively. I think that there's ideologies around human beings that historically humans haven't delivered on. And so that's what I'm trading on, but this may be the singular issue, and that's fine. And, I think that's great.
Well, I think that wraps up our show. Thank you, Notch, for having us tonight.